A closed door, 9 of the biggest names in professional golf on one side and Brian Rolapp on the other. This wasn't a casual check-in. It was a showdown for the soul of the PGA Tour. The outcome? 8 of those players stepped out looking like they had just lost their biggest ally. Their faces were stone cold, defeated. Only one walked out with a smirk. Only one was smiling. That unanswered question is exactly why you clicked on this video. Who were those 8? And more importantly, what did Rolapp say to make that single player feel like he had just won the lottery, while the rest felt like their careers were suddenly under threat? This isn't gossip. These are verified details from inside that meeting room, and the fallout is already reshaping how players view their future. What happened in that office is going to change the schedule, the money, and the very structure of the tour you follow every week. But before we break down who those 9 players are and what was on the table, I want your honest take. Do you trust Brian Rolapp to fix this tour, or are the players right to be terrified of him? Drop your opinion in the comments, because right now, the fan base is as divided as that room was. And if you genuinely care about the behind-the-scenes chaos shaping the PGA Tour, hit that subscribe button. We don't do fluff here. We break down the real pressure points. Over the next few minutes, we are going to reveal exactly who walked through that door, what Rolapp demanded, and why only one man left with a smile. But to understand why that room split so violently, you first have to understand the one thing Rolapp said that made everyone's blood run cold. Because that one sentence, it changed everything. Now, before we reveal who those 9 players were, we have to talk about the man sitting on the other side of that desk. Because Brian Rolapp is not your typical PGA Tour executive. He does not come from the caddy yard. He does not have a swing coach. He did not grow up dreaming of the Masters, and that is exactly why the players in that room were terrified of him. Rolapp spent 22 years at the NFL, 22 years inside the most ruthless, profit-driven sports machine on the planet. At the NFL, he did not care about tradition. He did not care about feelings. He cared about one thing: maximizing value. And in that world, players are assets, contracts are leverage, and loyalty is a weakness. When the PGA Tour brought him in as their first ever CEO in June of 2025, they thought they were getting a businessman. What they actually got was a wrecking ball wrapped in a suit, because Rolapp looked at the tour and saw something the players did not want to hear. He saw inefficiency. He saw a product that was losing its edge to LIV golf, and he saw a schedule that was bleeding money and attention. His first move was not to shake hands and make friends. His first move was to announce a 9-person committee, a committee made up of players and business minds. But here is the detail that sent shockwaves through the locker room. Rolapp did not call them advisors. He did not call them consultants. He called them the Future Competition Committee, and he gave them a blank canvas to redesign everything: the schedule, the money, the path to the majors, the very structure of who gets to play where and when. Now, for the players, that phrase, blank canvas, was terrifying. Because when a man like Rolapp hands you a blank canvas, he is not asking for your opinion. He is asking you to paint yourself into a corner. He is asking you to agree to changes that will strip away the freedom you have enjoyed for decades. The committee started meeting. 14 full committee meetings, 6 dedicated player sessions, 3 player advisory council meetings. That is not consultation. That is a machine grinding toward a conclusion. And the conclusion Rolapp has in mind is something the players never saw coming. But to understand why that room split so violently, you need to know exactly who was sitting around that table. Because Rolapp did not just pick any 9 people. He picked a group designed to fracture. He picked players from different generations, different backgrounds, and very different levels of job security. And that was no accident. The next part is where this story gets personal. Because when you look at that list of names, you start to realize why 8 of them walked out looking like they had just lost their biggest ally, and why one of them could not wipe the smile off his face. Here is the lineup that walked into that office. At the head of the table sat Tiger Woods, the chairman, the most powerful voice in the room. Next to him, Patrick Cantlay, Adam Scott, Camilo Villegas, Maverick McNeely, Keith Mitchell. Those were the 6 players. And then 3 business minds joined them. John Henry from Fenway Sports Group, Theo Epstein, the man who broke curses in Boston and Chicago, and Joe Gorder, the chairman of PGA Tour Enterprises. That is not a random group. That is a coalition of power, experience, and survival instinct. You have Tiger, who has seen every era of golf and survived them all. You have Cantlay and Scott, who represent the elite tier that can afford to be picky. You have Villegas, McNeely, and Mitchell, who represent the middle class of the tour. The guys who fight every week just to keep their cards. The guys who cannot afford to lose a single opportunity. And then you have the business minds, Henry, Epstein, and Gorder. Men who do not care about birdies or bogeys. They care about return on investment. They care about the bottom line. And they were sitting in that room listening to Rolapp outline a future that would make the bottom line very, very happy. But here is the detail that makes this lineup so dangerous. Rolapp did not just pick players who agree with him. He picked players who would fight each other. He picked a room where the interests could never fully align. Because what helps Tiger Woods does not necessarily help Keith Mitchell. What helps Patrick Cantlay does not necessarily help Camilo Villegas. And Rolapp knew that. He counted on that. That committee was designed to tear itself apart. And the only person who could walk out smiling was the one who had nothing to lose. Now, what did Rolapp actually say to these 9 people when that door closed? What was the proposal that made 8 of them feel like their careers were suddenly hanging by a thread? It started with 6 words. 6 words that changed everything. A promotion and relegation system. Let that sink in. Promotion and relegation. In the PGA Tour. For those of you who follow European soccer, you know exactly what that means. For those who do not, here is the short version. If you are not good enough, you go down. You get demoted. You lose access to the biggest events. You lose access to the biggest purses. You become a second-tier player, fighting to climb back up. Rolapp proposed a 2-track system. Track 1 would be the elite level, 15 to 16 events per year, $20 million purses, 130 players per event, with a cut line. Track 2 would be the developmental level, about 20 events, lower purses. But here is the catch. If you perform well on Track 2, you get promoted. If you perform poorly on Track 1, you get relegated. That means your status is no longer safe. You cannot coast on past achievements. You cannot pick and choose your schedule based on comfort. You have to perform every single week, or you lose everything. For the top guys, the Tigers and the Rorys, this is not a big deal. They are going to stay on Track 1 no matter what. But for the middle class, the guys who survive week to week, this is a nightmare. Because one bad stretch, one injury, one missed cut at the wrong time, and you are suddenly playing on the secondary tour. Your sponsor exemptions dry up. Your world ranking points disappear. Your path to the majors becomes almost impossible. And Rolapp knew exactly what he was doing when he proposed this. He was not proposing a fair system. He was proposing a survival system. A system where only the strong survive. A system where the weak get weeded out. And in that room, 8 of those 9 players realized they might be the weak ones. That is when the room turned cold. That is when the 8 players realized what Rolapp was really saying. You are not special. You are replaceable. And we are about to prove it. But the promotion and relegation system was only the beginning. Because Rolapp had more cards to play. He had been watching live golf. He had been watching the Saudi money drain talent and attention away from his product, and he had decided that the time for negotiation was over. Rolapp took a hardline stance on the LIV merger. He was not going to give in to PIF demands. He was not going to let LIV exist as a competing product. He wanted complete control. He wanted the PGA Tour to be the only game in town, and if that meant rejecting billions of dollars from the Saudis, so be it. Now, for the players in that room, this was a shocking position. Many of them had been hoping for a merger. Many of them had been hoping for a unified tour that would bring the big names back. But Rolapp was not interested in unity. He was interested in dominance. He wanted to crush LIV, and he wanted the players to know that their leverage was disappearing. The Saudis were walking away. The money was drying up, and Rolapp was holding the only remaining chips. That decision alone would have been enough to split that room. But there was one more thing. One more proposal that made 8 of those players feel like they had just been betrayed. Rolapp told them that their schedule flexibility was over. No more choosing which events to play. No more skipping the smaller tournaments to rest for the majors. He wanted a mandatory schedule. He wanted players to commit to a certain number of events. He wanted them to show up, perform, and earn their place. For the top guys, this is an annoyance. They lose some freedom. They lose some rest. But for the middle class, this is a lifeline. Because if the top guys are forced to play more events, that means more visibility, more ticket sales, more sponsorship opportunities. The middle class actually benefits from a mandatory schedule. But the top guys, they hated it. They hate being told what to do. They hate losing control over their own calendars. And in that room, the top guys were the ones with the most influence. They were the ones who could push back. They were the ones who could make Rolapp's life difficult. And that is exactly what they did. They pushed back. Hard. The top guys wanted freedom. The middle class wanted stability. And Rolapp wanted both of them to lose something. Now here is where the story gets really interesting. Because while the room was fracturing over promotion, relegation, and schedule control, a smaller battle was happening in the corners. A battle about trust. A battle about who was really looking out for the players. According to Golf Digest, at least 3 people in that room have been constant friction points. A player director, a former player, and a tour executive. They have been resisting Rolapp at every turn. They claim they are protecting the ordinary members. They claim they are fighting for the guys who do not have the power to fight for themselves, but tour headquarters sees it differently. They see resistance. They see people who are blocking progress. They see people who are more interested in protecting their own influence than protecting the tour. And they are asking a very uncomfortable question. Is this resistance about principle, or is it about personal grudges? That question hung in the air, and nobody wanted to answer it. Now, amidst all this tension, one voice stood out. One player who actually walked out of that room feeling good, feeling optimistic, feeling like he had just won something. Rory McIlroy. Rory sat down with Rolapp for 90 minutes after that meeting. 90 minutes of private conversation, and when he walked out, he had nothing but praise. He said he loved Rolapp. He said he loved that Rolapp did not come from golf. He said he finally saw a leader who was willing to make the hard decisions. But here is the catch. Rory is one of the top guys. He is safe. He is not going to get relegated. He is not going to lose his schedule flexibility. He is going to benefit from whatever changes Rolapp makes. He has nothing to fear, and that is why he could smile. That is why he could walk out of that room feeling like a winner. The other 8? They were not so lucky. They were the ones who could see their livelihoods changing. They were the ones who could see their freedom disappearing. They were the ones who could see their careers becoming more precarious. And they were the ones who walked out looking like they had just seen the future, and the future terrified them. Rory smiled because he knew he was safe. The other 8 were terrified because they knew they were not. So, here we are. The room has emptied, the door has closed, and the PGA Tour will never be the same. What Rolapp proposed in that room is not just a schedule change. It is not just a money change. It is a fundamental restructuring of the entire competitive ecosystem, a promotion and relegation system, a hardline stance against LIV, a mandatory schedule, and a complete reimagining of who gets to play where and when. For the fans, this means more star power at the biggest events. It means more drama, more stakes, more reasons to watch. For the players, it means more pressure, more uncertainty, more risk. And for Rolapp, it means exactly what he wanted: control. This is not a negotiation. This is a takeover. And the only question left is who will survive. Now, I want to leave you with one final thought, a thought that will shape the future of this tour for years to come. If Rolapp wins, golf becomes a meritocracy, a pure, unforgiving meritocracy where only the best survive. The weak get weeded out, the strong get rewarded, and the product becomes sharper, more competitive, and more valuable. If the players win, golf stays the same. The soft schedule, the comfortable decisions, the tradition, but the tour continues to bleed talent, continues to lose attention, continues to fall behind the competition. So, the real question is not who walked out smiling. The real question is which future you want. The future where golf is a business, or the future where golf is a tradition. Because right now, those two futures are fighting for control. One man smiled in that room, 8 men walked out defeated. But the real winner won't be decided until we see who is still standing 5 years from now. So, I want to hear from you. Are you on Team Rolapp or Team Players? Drop your answer in the comments. And while you are there, hit that subscribe button, because this story is far from over. and we will be here to break down every twist and turn as it unfolds. Thanks for listening, and remember, the game is changing, whether you are ready or not.